Hello everyone, and welcome to another video where I'm looking back at games from 2020. In this video, I'm going to be counting down the 10 games that came out in 2020 that I wish I would have tried. So these are 10 games that caught my interest. I was very excited to try these games, but I was not able to try them last year. So these are games that I have not played. I haven't even read the rule books on many, or actually on any of these games. So for whatever reasons, these games caught my eye and I was very intrigued with them, and I want to count down the 10 games that I'm most interested in from 2020. So let's jump right into it. At number 10, we got a game that came out from Awaken Realms, a publisher that made Lords of Hellas and Nemesis, two games that I very much enjoy. And this game is called Aetherfields. Aetherfields is a co-op or a solo game where you are basically going through a dream world. You're exploring your dreams. And so there's kind of a narrative adventure theme going on here. There's lots of different characters you can play as, each with their own unique deck. There's a little bit of deck building as well here, where you can buy cards to put into your deck to give your characters more upgraded abilities. Not to mention each character has their own unique abilities. In this game, you are exploring this dream world. You are investigating these unclear stories, and as you keep going through these dream scenarios, my understanding is there's an overarching story. I don't know if it's quite a mystery, but it's something you're trying to discover. I really liked the game Seventh Continent, and this is another game in that same vein, I think, and that's why I was kind of intrigued in this one. So that's number 10, Aetherfields. Moving on down the list to number 9, I have a two-player game. I really enjoy two-player games, especially those small box two-player games. I got a couple back on the shelf there that I like to play. And so this was another one that I was very excited to add to my collection, so I'm looking for a chance to get this to the table sometime, and that is Glasgow. So Glasgow is a game from a new designer. In this game, you are basically trying to build a city together. It's a tile laying game. One thing that I think was interesting about this game that intrigued me is similar to games like Patchwork from Uwe Rosenberg. You lay out these city tiles, not the city tiles, but you lay out these tiles in a circle, and as you move your worker around in that circle, you can go as far as you want, and whatever tile you end on, that's the resources you get or the action you get to take, and whoever is behind gets to take the next turn. So if I jump ahead 7 spaces, for example, to take an action, the second player maybe only goes 1 space, and then it's their turn again. Then maybe they only go 2 more spaces, and they're still behind me, so they get to go again. So you kind of have this push and pull of taking actions. So basically just kind of going around this wheel, taking actions to collect resources, and then at certain parts on this wheel are the main actions of the game, where you buy or purchase or build these city tiles, and you put them in the center of that circle, building the city together. You aim the tiles towards yourself to show that you built that piece, and then all these city tiles give you more bonuses, more actions you can take. You're trying to put them adjacent to each other to get some combos and stuff. Very heavy Euro crunchy game, two-player city building tile game. Looks cool. Really looking forward to playing it. That is Glasgow. The number 8 game on my list that came out in 2020 that I really would like to play is Imperial Struggle. I love Twilight Struggle. That is in my top 10 games. I love the hand management of this type of game. Playing cards that can help your opponent, kind of understanding when you should strategically do certain things. So Imperial Struggle caught my eye for that same reason. I believe it's the same designers. In this game, you've got England versus France instead of America versus the Soviet Union. My understanding is it adds a couple extra elements that Twilight Struggle doesn't have. For example, there's times where you could be at peace or times where you could be at war in the game, and so depending on the state of the game, there's different actions that you can be taking. There's a little bit more of an economy phase as you're trying to build up resources and build this economy of your empire, whether it's France or England. So overall, love Twilight Struggle. really excited to try this Imperial Struggle game and see if those new mechanics add a lot to it that would make this maybe topple Twilight Struggle as one of my favorite two-player games. So that is my number 8, Imperial Struggle. Going on to my number 7 is a game that came out from Kickstarter. And I was interested in this game because it had a very weird theme, very interesting theme, and it looked like a fun pick up and deliver small skirmish combat game, and that is Windward. So in Windward, you basically play as a captain of a spaceship. Literally a ship that flies around on a planet in the atmosphere, and you're basically hunting space whales. And so it's got this really interesting theme of you're trying to hunt and capture these space whales, and capturing these whales gives you resources, and then you need to take the whales back to port, and you can trade the resources you got from your hunt to get other resources. You use that to maybe buy some cards to upgrade your boat, upgrade your ships. There's even some combat in this game where you can be pirates. So if someone else scores a nice big hunt of their space whale, my understanding is you can sail to that ship and have some combat and maybe steal their plunder. So that seemed really cool. So I just liked this pick up and deliver game, this little hunting game, this mini skirmish game, and the ability to kind of customize your ship and your crew to go out and hunt these space whales. It seemed like a fun game. Hopefully I'll get a chance to play it soon. My number 7. Moving on to my number 6 is a game that I believe came out in Europe, if I'm not mistaken, and didn't make its way to the US until really late 2020, and that is Nividalier, if I'm saying that right, Nividalier. And this is a game from the same designer who did Shadows over Camelot and Add a Straw, 2 games that I do enjoy very much. And this is a bidding, not auction, but kind of a bidding set collection game. So in Nividalier, you get these coins, these different value coins, a 0 token, 2 through 5, and these different dwarves are laid face up on the table, and each round you lay these coins face down, basically bidding on these different dwarves that are face up on the table. And you're trying to collect sets of these 5 different colors. Each dwarf is worth different points. Some might have special abilities. And as you are winning these bids for these dwarves, you're putting them down as a tableau. You're trying to get a set collection of all the different colors. And when you do that, then you get to get a leader dwarf who gives you another ability. It's got an interesting mechanic where you start with these basic coins, and when you bid with your 0 token, you get to cash in 2 of your coins and add them up. So maybe you add up your 4 and your 5, and then you get rid of those 2 coins, but you get a 9 instead. Or no, you don't get rid of both of them. You get rid of one of them, and then you get an additional coin, a 9. So you can start upgrading your coins so you're stronger at bidding. It just looked like a really neat game. I like bidding games. I like set collection games. I like moving towards this common goal and then unlocking an ability once I achieve it. So I thought this game looked really cool. I need to do some more research to see if it's out in the US or not yet. Definitely want to get my hands on this and try it. That is Nividalier. Moving on to my number 5 is a game that came out on Kickstarter, and I don't think this is going to have a retail release, so I'm not sure if I'm really going to get a chance to play it, but it is on my list of games I really want to try, and that is Monumental. Deck building tends to be a mechanic I enjoy a lot, and that is what Monumental is. But what intrigued me about this game is it adds a couple other mechanics as well. So it does have a central board, a map where you can explore, so there's some 4X type aspects to it where you're trying to control these different regions on the map to get bonus points, exploring them, finding goodies as you're out exploring. But the deck building part of this game that really intrigued me is instead of having a hand of cards like Concordia or something else like that where you're playing cards in order and you're trying to maximize the efficiency of it, you're building this grid of cards in front of you. It's a 3x3 grid, 3 cards, 3 cards, 3 cards. And on your turn, you pick 1 row and 1 column, and you activate all cards in that row and column. So those 5 cards then become your hand, and you do those actions from that column and that row. What an interesting twist. I think that's fascinating. And then when you're done with those cards, those 5 cards that you ended up playing, you discard them from that row and column, and then you draw another set of 5 cards to refill that row and column. So you have to kind of plan where you're going to be putting these cards. I think of games by Alexander Fista like Mombasa, where you're playing cards and then you have to discard them to different piles, and then you choose which discard pile to get back. So I just like this very interesting twist on playing cards and deck building. So Monumental stood out to me as a cool game, but again, I don't think it's going to have a retail release, so this might be kind of a hard game for me to get my hands on and try it out. Moving on down the list to my number 4 is a game that intrigued me by its theme first, and then as I read about it, it also seemed like a game I would like, and that is Praga. Praga is a city building game, but my understanding is it's a very, very crunchy Euro game as well. So in Praga, I think you're trying to build the city of Prague, is the theme of the game. But the cool thing about this game that caught my eye is this action selection wheel. Basically, as the rounds go on, this wheel is turning, and on the cogs of this wheel are these tiles that have 2 actions on them. And so on your turn, you take one of those tiles off, and you get to do the 2 actions that were on that tile. But depending on where that wheel was positioned, you might have to pay for those. You might get victory points for taking it. You might get bonuses for taking that tile. So you kind of need to strategically plan of, okay, I need to do these 2 actions, but it's not really in a good spot on the wheel. Or maybe, oh, I don't think these 2 actions will help me too much, but if I take them, I get 5 victory points. So this whole thing about taking actions based on where they are on the wheel, that's basically all I know about the game, and that was enough to intrigue me right there that I wanted to try it. Not to mention it's a crunchy Euro, which I do like Euros on occasion, so definitely want to try that out. That is Praga. Number 3 on my list is from the same designer as a lot of the games in the West Kingdom series, and this is Raiders of Scythia. This designer also did the game Raiders of the North Sea, which is in my top 100 games of all time. I really enjoy Raiders of the North Sea, and I think that the designer cleaned up some mechanics from that and implemented some of the things from his expansions to Raiders of the North Sea into this game, Raiders of Scythia. Basically, it's a worker placement game where the same mechanics of Raiders, where you put down workers and pull off workers in kind of this tandem to take actions, where you're trying to move across this board and raid different villages and settlements with your marauders. You're also building a collection of cards of the people who are in your raiding party, and a lot of these different characters that you end up adding into your raiding party have their own special abilities or ways to get bonuses. So lots of fun, cool things to do. Less take that than Raiders of the North Sea, I hear. The unique cards and special abilities sounds cool, and then of course the fun tandem worker placement of putting workers down, taking workers off to take actions seems like a cool idea. So Raiders of Scythia, really want to try that, see if I like it more than Raiders of the North Sea. Moving on down to my number 2 game of 2020 that I wish I would have had a chance to play last year, and that is a game by David Turchi, and this is Roman Roll. David is a designer. He did Anachrony. He also has done the solo mode of another game I love a lot, Teotihuacan. And this game is not necessarily a roll and write. It's a city building game, crunchy Euro as well. Actually, a lot of these games, now that I think about it, have that crunchy Euro feel. This is a dice and roll game. You roll dice, they give you different resources and actions, and you draft those dice to get those actions. And you're basically trying to build Rome, build different districts in Rome, and get points that way. I heard that this game is very crunchy, very thought-provoking, very strategic. I wanted to get this game to try out solo. I thought a lot of roll and write games, why they are fun, they're not very complex, they're not very deep. And so as a solo experience, I'm excited to try this game to see if it kind of mimics some of those mechanics from a deeper, crunchier game that I could play on my own in my free time. So that's Roman Roll by David Turczi, my number 2 game that I wish I would have had a chance to try last year. And my number 1 game that came out in 2020 that I really want to try is Red Cathedral. Russian-themed games or Eastern European-themed games is one of my favorite themes in board games. And so that's probably the first thing that attracted me to this game. And then I did read about it. I have actually watched some reviews on this game and loved what I heard. So this is a dice worker placement game that has this giant rondel on the board. And on your turn, you're basically picking some dice and moving them across this rondel, taking the action of where the dice left off, and then you pick up all the dice and re-roll them, put them back down, and the different faces of the dice indicate how many of the resources you get or how they interact with the actions in that space. So the dice are always changing faces every round, every time someone takes a turn. So there's a lot of variety in how that works. What you're basically doing is trying to collect resources from going around this rondel, and then you're sending your workers to build the Red Cathedral in the Red Square in Moscow. And so you lay down these cards, kind of building this outline of the cathedral, and then you start building it. Now what's interesting is you can start building like the level 1 of the cathedral, and then you work your way up the cathedral to the top spires. And as you work your way up, those levels are worth more points. And so there's kind of this race aspect to this game where if you start working on a bottom section but someone finishes the top section first, I think there's a penalty because you were taking too much time on the easier section. So there's this kind of pressure and race aspect to the game as well. I thought that seemed really cool. Not to mention I like this dice rondel thing, looks really interesting. So that's Red Cathedral, my number 1. So there's a list of my 10 games from 2020 that came out that I wanted to play but didn't get a chance to play. Let me know in the comments what games came out in 2020 that you wanted to try that you weren't able to get your hands on. And stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to be talking about my 10 most played games of 2020 and see what I was actually spending my time playing. So stick around for that. Thanks for watching.